Sadnam, yogis and yoginis. Hello and welcome to a live stream in nature. Today we will have a conversation. We will talk about passion, compassion, and empathy. This is based on a question that I got from one of the viewers. And Karina was asking, what's the difference between empathy and compassion? And probably she wants to bring a little bit of the numbers as well. And she was asking a few more things in the comment. She was asking whether the treasures are the virtues. So yes, what we call the 9 treasures, sometimes when we read in the scriptures, the 9 treasures, or asking for the gurus to bring us the 9 treasures, things like that, it is talking about the virtues. Now, we have studied the virtues in this channel already in some videos. Actually, the whole course on the Mool Mantra was exploring the virtues and the viruses. And so, yes, these 9 treasures would correspond to the 9 virtues, of which number 8 is compassion. So that is the number, the 8th virtue linked to the 8 is infinity. 8 is the number of water. Water cleanses, water is purity, and water heals. So compassion is linked to healing as well. So that's already just very shortly answering this one of the questions. And then she also asks whether Dharma is something specific or there is some universal Dharma. So I'll try to answer that. But first I will go into empathy and compassion. Excuse me. Hopefully the sound is good. Being in nature, I cannot have my computer next to me to check the audio levels and to check that everything is right. So hopefully the audio is coming up right. Let me know otherwise. So empathy and compassion. Both words have a similar root. I believe that both words come from pathos, empathy, and compassion, passion coming from pathos. When we think about passion, sometimes we think about a different kind of passion, but in the old, coming from Latin, in the old way of talking about pathos is connected to pain, and that's where the passion of Christ comes from. Yeah, the pain of Christ. So pathos means pain, and then we have empathy and we have compassion. So how are those two different? And my understanding of these two words has evolved over the years. Before I used to have it very clearly, empathy in number 4. Now I think there is some nuances to that. So I'm going to talk about that specifically. But let's start with that. Let's start with empathy. Empathy is my capacity to feel and sense something that is happening in somebody else. So through my empathy, I can feel that somebody is suffering. Now that feeling, that's why I used to put it on number 4, because 4 is the 4th chakra, is linked to the heart, is linked to feelings, sensing, sensitivity. It's all very much connected to number 4 and the heart. And so I would say that it is that capacity of the heart to sense that allows us to sense what feeling I have from the other person, what is the other person going through. And if the other person is suffering, through my empathy, I can feel that. Now, in order to talk about that, there has to be, we have to make a difference between what is empathy, sympathy, and antipathy. And I believe I've already done that in some other video, but let me just touch upon it a little bit here. So empathy is neutral. Our capacity to feel somebody's feelings and somebody's also emotions, where are they emotionally, where are they in terms of feeling, this can be simply neutral. I can notice that you are in pain and I can feel it, I can feel your pain, and it doesn't have to change my state into one or another. Which are these one or another? The sympathy and the antipathy. So for example, if I see somebody hurting, let's say I see one of the examples that Karina was giving in the comment, in the question that she was presenting here, is about what happens when I see a beggar in the street. So if I see a beggar in the street and I see them drinking and they are, laying down, there's some vomit, some piss on the ground, something like that, and I see this beggar, there can be a number of different states that I can go into. If I have sympathy, I am gonna sympathize with the person, meaning that I I put myself in his shoes, and I also like, oh, poor guy, oh, let me help you, maybe I can give you a hand. But this is not neutral. When you are in sympathy and you are going into that state, this is a friendly state. So our friends want to help each other, but friends is not sangat. Three is not four. Yeah, let me translate it to numbers. When you are in the friendly state of number three, there is the mind, and the mind is, we know, is playing games. Generally, when we go into the sympathetic, in this particular example, it would be like playing the mind game of the rescuer. Yeah, you are helping somebody and you feel good because you are helping somebody. So you are looking forward to your good feeling of feeling like the rescuer and feeling that you are doing something for somebody else. It can be also linked to how you are perceived. It could be like, oh, I'm going to help him because then, people will see me doing something good. This is unfortunately very common in our society and very common right now. This is called virtue signaling, yeah, giving the signal that I am virtuous person, which is not the same as having the virtue itself, but it's a good emulation, let's say, or simulation of those virtues. And so we are caring for the other one, but actually we don't really care so much for the other one as we care for people seeing that we care for them. So this is sympathy. Empathy may look very similar, but it's a different feeling, and we will go into that in a moment. And when you are sympathetic to the other person, maybe you're expecting something. You may expect a thanks, you may expect some reward, you may expect a pat in the back, somebody to say some kind words about you, or somebody to talk beautiful. Or if it's a post in Instagram, you will expect to have some likes and some comments. Yeah. So sympathy is not without self-interest. It's not selfless. There is some interest in there. And the thing with sympathy is that you are connected to the other one and you are receiving something. So if the other one is suffering, through the empathy, through the empathetic connection, you may be receiving part of that pain. This is where, in a different example, not necessarily with the beggar in the street, but this is why if you are, let's say, a masseur, you do massages for working, yeah? You work on this field, and you spend the day giving massages to people, and you are contacting physically their skin, and they often telling you their problems, their troubles. And if you are in a sympathetic mode because you have sympathy for the person who is here and is friendly person and they are paying some money, and then you feel an obligation also to take care of them and care for them, then you may end up the day with a headache or with a low energy, being very tired, exhausted, and so on. And that could be because you are taking part of their burden and putting it on yourself. And that's very common amongst, I said masseurs, but you could extend it to healers, therapists, teachers, so on and so forth. So that's sympathy. So if you notice that, let's say you are a teacher or a consultant or a therapist, and you end the day with low energy and tired, and it's not just because, it's been a long day, but you took something from the other, then you should check what's happening because you are going into sympathy mode. And when you are sympathetic, and the mind will know how much it likes to play games, particularly mind games, if you are in this sympathy, then you're looking for something. The mind is not, we are not fully selfless, and therefore we are not fully neutral. So that's not the best place to be in order to serve for somebody's well-being, or serve them in a way that they can heal them. This is more about helping, and helping, we know it's karmic, while selfless service, that's dharmic. So that's the difference. This is going to connect as well to the concept of dharma, whether it's personal or universal. It will come in a few minutes. We will talk about that. If you can hear me well, let me know. If you cannot hear me well, let me know as well, so I can change some of, maybe I can change some of the settings. I'm also with these things. All right, so sympathy is clear. Antipathy is quite the opposite. So rather than a feeling of attraction and feeling friendly towards that person and wanting to be next to them, wanting to help them, is about rejection and pulling away. We know that these are the two basic modes of the ego. When the basic survival mechanisms of the baby are pulling the baby towards something because they see something is curious. Yeah, they see a little ball, a red ball in the ground, and they want to get close to it because they are interested. And then they see a red spider and they pull away from the red spider because they think it may be dangerous. This very, very basic mechanism of pulling forward or pulling away becomes our likes and our dislikes, which is the foundational stone of what the ego becomes. And my ego has likes and dislikes. That's why in the training of yoga teachers, we often give the definition of a teacher is the one who is beyond the likes and the dislikes, one who is beyond what you like and what you dislike. And that's why we do yoga. Nobody really likes to be in pain for 11 minutes with the arms stretched, but it's not about liking that pain. It's about what that pain brings later. Yeah, the transformation that it brings in us, knowing that we overcame a barrier, and the physical and energetic and mental benefits of having gone through that posture. So it's beyond likes and dislikes. So in the sympathy, we have the likes. So the polar opposite is the dislike. So antipathy is when I see the beggar and I don't feel any sympathy for this guy. It's like, ugh, I feel more disgust. That's one of the very basic emotions, one of the 6 basic human emotions, and that's pulling away. That's telling the baby, go away from the red spider because it might be dangerous. We see a drunk in the street, be careful, it could be dangerous, pull away from him. So it is biased. It is a subjective perception, that he may not be dangerous at all, but we have a bias towards that. And there could be prejudices linked to that. And we call that antipathy. Yeah, all the opposite of putting ourselves in their shoes. We are very much in our shoes, and our shoes tell us to run. So that's the difference between sympathy and antipathy. Empathy, that's a neutral state. So it's not negative and positive, let's say. It's not pull away, not get close, which could be like the negative and the positive mind, if you want to look at it from the 3 minds perspective. But this is more about being neutral. So you feel that somebody is in pain when you look at this beggar and they are drunk and they piss themselves, and you're like, goodness, this person, the soul within the person. When I say person, is the personality, and the personality is linked to the ego. Yeah. So this soul within that cocoon of the ego is suffering, is crying, is having a tough time, and you can feel that pain through that empathy. It doesn't mean automatically I'm going to try to fix their life. It doesn't mean automatically I may try to help them. It doesn't trigger the rescue pattern in us, nor the scare, I'm scared, let's get out. So it can be just simply, you feel that they are in pain. That's just empathy, simply, that feeling of being in pain. Now, I used to associate that with number 4, and I believe it's more, it's number 4 and 5 are really close, so I believe it's more like the 5 connected to the 8. I'm going to come to the 8 in a moment because we're going to go into compassion in 1 second. But 5, 2, 5, 8, these 3 numbers, which are in line, if you look at the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I cannot draw here in nature, but you can imagine it in your head. So 2 and 8 is the numbers of water, and the 5 in the middle is like a mirror. Yeah, when you look at yourself in the reflection of the surface of a lake or something like that. Yeah, so water has the capacity to reflect, and so in empathy, let's say the water takes the qualities of that thing that is reflecting. So in empathy, you are taking those qualities. You are feeling the pain of the other. And you may be reflecting that. I believe Karina, in the question, she was also asking what happens when we do projection. Yeah, projection could be that I'm feeling something, and I see somebody else, and I label that as if they were experiencing the same thing that I'm experiencing, and we project that our experience onto them. That's not a neutral state. So that's not empathy, really. That's more about you go into a sympathetic state and then you project it onto the other. And that's very common, and we should be aware of that, especially also therapists and teachers and so on. Yeah, not to project our personal experience, because we've been through a similar situation and we think we know what's going on to them, and we think we know what they need, and therefore we project also those things to them. Or we are simply having a bad day. That could be another thing. We're having a bad day, and we are in a very negative circle inside. The other person steps in front of us, and they are just making any random comment that we interpret that they mean something specific, and then we project whatever we are experiencing onto that comment, and therefore onto the other person, and we misunderstand the situation, and we react from there. That reaction is going to have karma. Yes. So hopefully that makes it more clear. The position of the 5 within the 2 and the 8 will become more clear as we talk about compassion. So let's go into compassion. So compassion is one of the treasures, is one of the virtues. And compassion, as a different from empathy, compathy, it's a passion that we are sharing. Compartir in Spanish, compartir, yeah? Is like a common thing, yeah? So common passion. Compassion means common passion. Like you feel somebody's passion, that would be your empathy, yeah? The capacity to feel that somebody's in pain, that's the empathy. And then through that empathy, okay, I feel that they are in pain, and I know what pain is because I have suffered. So I can feel their pain and share that pain. So that common is what allows you to share the pain. Doesn't mean I'm going to take it for myself. That would be sympathy. Yeah. In compassion, you stay in the empathy, stay neutral. So empathy is what gives you the capacity to feel it, but the compassion is when you share it and when you are in the common passion. So now I am feeling your pain. I know what it means to be in that position, and but you stay neutral. You don't go into trying to help the other. So this actually is really interesting because often when I find in consultations, and this is my personal experience as well, we go through challenges in life. And I was just remembering a comedian, Jimmy Carr, you may know him from UK, and he was making a point because somebody was telling him, my child is bullied in school. And he was saying, oh, what a horrible thing. I'm sorry that your son is going through that. But you can tell him something. He is getting a good education because having gone through something like that, is going to develop a good character in him. Nobody with a great character has gone through life without suffering. So somehow the going through the tough times and getting over those is what fortifies you and creates this character. And in a way, now you suffer, now you know what pain is, now you are able to share with somebody else in the compassion kind of way, and therefore it can be used for healing. So compassion would be when I feel what you feel, I share that experience, and if I remain neutral, just that sharing it can already be healing potentially. And I'm saying compassion, and very, very carefully, we have to recognize the difference with pity. Pity would be when you may feel somebody else's pain, and then instead of empathy, you go down to sympathy. And then you are, oh, sorry for the other one. Oh, I'm so sorry, really. Oh, poor guy. That's like, I am above you. Yeah, you are suffering, you are below me. And then when you have pity for the other, you may do things for them, you may help them, you may try to fix their life. This is all sympathy. And we know that sympathy is not selfless, is not neutral, and therefore it is karmic. So in order to remain in a dharmic state and not accumulate more karma, it's important to remain in that neutrality. Yes, I feel their pain. Let's share that. Let's see where that is. How is that going to manifest, and how is it going to be? Is it just about being with you while you talk? Is it just giving some sort of emotional support, not trying to fix, not feeling superior because actually you have been there and you know what that pain is. So somebody else could have been there. I know what it is, but I came out, and then you may feel superior as well. So it doesn't guarantee anything. Just because you suffer doesn't guarantee. It's just that you have been able to transform that suffering And that's what we in yoga call from passion to compassion. Yeah, so we transform our inner pain into the capacity to feel universal pain in a neutral way so that that can be healing. Hopefully that's very clear. But yeah, so we remain neutral in the pain, and that's a universal thing connecting to that human universal pain. Everybody has some form of pain, and just sharing that can be healing. I can imagine, Saint Teresa de Calcutta, from Calcutta, yeah. She would be with the lepers, she would be helping them, bathing them, and just being with them and treating them as human beings and just being able to connect with them. How tremendous, how incredibly healing could that be? And healing is not the same as curing. Okay, that doesn't mean that they would get cured, not necessarily. There can be miracles as well, but it's not about curing, it's about healing. That could be so much more healing just knowing that somebody is treating me as a human being in spite of my disease. And so that's what compassion does. That's why compassion as a virtue is linked to healing, and that's connected to water. Okay, so hopefully that's a little bit more clear. Compassion is then number 8. And you could see it like that. 8, you can see number 8, and there is a middle point in the 8, and the middle point is the 5. Yeah, and that is the mirror. So on one side there is somebody, and on the other side is the other one. And you can put it horizontal if you wish, like the infinite. Yeah. So there is my pain and your pain, and my pain and your pain. And in the middle is the 5. 5 is also the point of connection. 5, the fifth chakra, is talking. So just by talking, just by sharing, you are telling me about your pain, and I can be there, and I can listen to you and talk to you through that experience. Not necessarily do I have to share my pain. I don't have to talk about my experience, but just in conversing with you, that can transform, yeah, and that can be healing. So that's how the 2 with the 5 with the 8. And something else also, 8 is 4 plus 4. So there is a double 4 here. There's a 4 in one side and there is another 4 on the other side, if you draw the 8. So 1, 4, 1, 4. And those two 4s, it could be that feeling and that neutrality, and connected also to the empathy, as I meant before. So that aspect of the sensitivity, a sensibility, the sensing, the noticing what the other one is feeling and remaining neutral, and through that neutrality, wanting to, the gift of 4 is service, so serve the other's soul. Yeah, you see the beggar, and you feel compassion, and you may feel, well, what's the service that I can offer? It doesn't mean necessarily you're going to rescue the person. You're not going to have this fantasy that you are helping him, but what is the service that this person needs? And maybe the service it needs is that you accompany this person to a shelter for homeless person. Maybe it will be just to sit down and talk a few words with them like they are a human being. Or it could be simply just to have a prayer for them and let them be because they are not ready for anything else. Who knows? Sometimes our service is to give them, shout at them, give them something that can be shocking. That's number 6, yeah, going from the 4 to the 6. But some people they are so much in their ego. I'm thinking a different example, but it's okay. Somebody, they are in their ego, they are fantasizing, they think they are doing it right, and they are projecting onto others, they are gaslighting others, and they are manipulating, whatever. And to those people, sometimes you just need to stand up straight and sometimes shout. Sometimes say, stop it. I will not go through this. I will not allow it. I will not let you, trample me. I'm just going to be very clear and very straight. But if you do that, you have to be absolutely clear you are doing that from a neutral position, and just the neutrality is 4. 1 is standing up. So standing up for yourself or for somebody who cannot stand up for themselves, and be very clear and shout. Some injustices need to be, you need to confront them in a way that you're just standing up and just very clear, very, very peaceful as well, but said it very clearly, yeah? So that's another aspect of how you can serve, and not only by trying to help, yeah? So let's make this differentiation very clear. All right, so hopefully that brings a little bit clearer the distinction between empathy and compassion. Empathy as the capacity to feel, and staying neutral allows it to share something with the other, the common passion that can itself be healing. So that's that. Regarding this is a virtue, is this a universal virtue or not? Before I go into that, I'll go in a moment. I want to say also there is the times we are living right now, they are quite interesting because we've always been manipulated. Yeah, there's always forces in this planet that are to manipulate us and try to guide us in a direction that they have their own interests, and we may not want to go along with them, and we fight against those forces, and we we try to stand up, yeah, for what we think is right. But lately, I've noticed that there's been a refinement in the way that some of these shadow, puppets, puppeteers, have changed the direction of how this is done. And often I find compassion is a tool that has been utilized now. And a compassion has been hijacked and it has been abused. And now they sell you a number of things and they tell you, you have to be like this to be virtuous. And that's where the virtuous signaling come. And that's why many people show themselves in, Instagram or whatever, pretending to be so virtuous because they want to have the approval of the others. That comes from their own insecurity, but never mind. So they say, okay, look, you want the approval of people, you just have to say that you are virtuous. And one of the virtues is compassion. So be compassionate for this, be compassionate for that. And the way they present the compassion, it has within it a little virus. Yeah? So compassion is a virtue, but how it is presented and how it is utilized and manipulated, it can be a virus. And then anybody, if you just say they are compassionate or they tell you to be compassionate, they manipulate you into thinking a particular way. And you have to be very conscious, very careful of how this is being done, not to go down that route. So just a little reminder, not to be careful. Just because somebody is speaking about something doesn't mean they are living that. We see that a lot in our modern society, and we see that a lot in powerful people. No, and now with the Epstein files being released and seeing people who talk about protecting women, protecting children, and then we know all that is going on in the background. So just because somebody tells you compassion for somebody who cannot defend themselves or some minority, or compassion for the planet, for the climate crisis, whatever the label they use, very often you're going to see that next to that compassion, there's some interest that they have, and they're trying to utilize the word compassion as a key to enter into your subconscious and manipulate you from that. So absolutely, compassion is a virtue. Be careful that they are not presenting it in a way that is hijacked. Make sure that you remain neutral. That would be the 6. And make sure you have the discernment, the capacity to say not this, not that, because that's the 2 and the 8. The 2 is the negative mind. So it's saying, no, you're telling me be compassion, so you have to do this. No, hold on, that's not compassion. Yeah, not this, not that. And to have the clarity from the 6, intuitive clarity, and the discernment from the 8 linked to the wisdom, to be able to say, I am not going through those hoops. I know you want me to go in through that. I'm not going to play the game of virtue signaling. I'm going to remain neutral. And I'm going to have my own discernment to know what it is and what is not, and what should I do in a particular situation. If I see a beggar, I will check myself. What am I feeling? Is it my prejudice that is making me feel like this? Is it my willingness to rescue somebody? My mind game of rescuing somebody that is making me feel like this? Is it my neutrality that is making me feel like this? And out of that, what is the best service I can do for their soul? That's always a good general attitude. Yeah? Serve somebody else's soul, which doesn't mean necessarily help the personality, individual personality, the persona that the other one has generated. All right, hopefully that brings more clarity. So, compassion. All right, so virtues, dharma and virtues. Yeah, these virtues, there is some universal virtues. If we think about this, compassion, humility, peace, these are universal, and you can find them in any code of ethics, in any morality lists, yeah, especially religions or philosophies, you're going to find that there is some codes, and those codes often point towards this universal um, virtues. So there is some clear universal virtues. The numbers, which are something neutral, they are not aligned with any particular ism. Yeah, Sikhism, Buddhism, whatever, Christianism. The numbers are not aligned with that, and the numbers tells us that there is a certain number of these virtues, and you can find them out by reflecting on them. That's why we have that course on mantra yoga, the Mul Mantra Yoga, the Mul Mantra, sorry. If you want to explore more on the principles, you can go through that course. Even though I do that course through the Mul Mantra, which is something Sikh from Sikhism, but it's universal. It's not necessarily linked to Sikhism. In fact, if you study Sikhism, you're not going to find that they are telling you these lists of virtues. They talk about the 9 treasures, but it's like you have to read between the lines, and you have to find different passages to understand what that means. Yeah, but yes, there are some universal virtues. There are some universal principles that guide us, and then over the different stages of humanity, we have been tuning into those and trying to formulate them as best as we could, creating our own lists of commandments, lists of codes of ethics or morality, checklists. Yeah. So this is how we have attempted to formulate those things which we can intuit and we can feel that they are universal, but we created them as it suited us in our whatever level of evolution we were as a humanity, or whatever environment and conditions we were living in. So we will see that the expression of how those virtues is written down will be very different from Christianism, from Sikhism, because they are from different ages, from different cultures, different things, and it will manifest in different ways. But if you read all of those, if you read what Islam says, if you read what Christianity says, and you can detect some of these virtues. Yeah, it will be mixed with other things as well, but you can detect some of these virtues, and you will see that there is some concepts will come again and again. And I feel like one of the most universal ones, the one that is the most relevant first principle that appears, and it appears also in the yogic text, is ahimsa, to not harm. So you will, if you read in the way that some of these codes talk about, thou shalt not kill, things like that, you will say, well, you will not harm. Yeah, so they are talking about this universal principle. We have no clearest way of codifying these 10 principles as what I have found in the numbers. This is the closest thing I found to something universal. There might be other ways of refining that, but I think that's the closest thing we have to a description of these treasures, of these virtues. And you have to read between the lines, you have to explore within the code and go deeper in whatever teachings you encounter. And then some of them will be adapted to that culture, that society. The most universal thing I found so far and that I can relate to is the numbers and the principles that they guide us to. So that's my connection, and that's why I use that as my personal reference. So that's what I align to. And I may enjoy some Buddhist talks, or I may go to the Gurudwara and enjoy the kirtan there and the Shabbats from the Gurus. My reference will be to those universal numbers which tell us these qualities which are universal. So, all right. Hopefully that also explains about the personal Dharma and universal Dharma. And that brings hopefully clarity to all these concepts. And I'm going to continue walking. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you everybody for supporting as well, and subscribing and commenting and liking. Share with me if you have some clear experience that you had where you noticed that you were living compassion and not pity, or living empathy and not sympathy, things like that. So it would be nice to hear your stories of how you differentiated both. I always reply to messages. I had been a little bit in delay, but now I catched up all the messages. So I always reply if you put the messages on down in the video below. I will get back to you. Or if it's a very interesting question, like the one we had from Corina today, I will do a video on that. If it's sometimes I cannot speak just for a few minutes. Sometimes I do. Sometimes a little question and I do a short, like the other day on Satanama and Satan. But today it required a little bit of a longer explanation, so I took the opportunity to do the video. Thank you very much, everyone. Till next time, Sanam.